In the winter of 1944, German staff officers tracked a name with obsessive precision. Not divisions, not armies. One man, George Patton. They had watched him slash across France in August, covering 300 miles in 2 weeks. They had watched him breach the Moselle in September, despite impossible odds. And by December, as snow blanketed the Ardennes, they had catalogued his movements with the kind of detail usually reserved for enemy plans they desperately wanted to stop. The files piled up: intercepts, prisoner interrogations, reconnaissance flights, and the assessment was always the same. He was the most dangerous. The Germans first encountered Patton in Sicily in the summer of 1943. It wasn't a fair fight. The Wehrmacht had already written off the island. Their Italian allies were collapsing by the hour, and the mission was simple: delay, withdraw. Evacuate 60,000 men and their weapons across the Strait of Messina to the mainland. Patton drove toward Palermo. The Germans weren't impressed. The territory was already abandoned. The real fighting happened on the eastern coast, where British forces ground against prepared defenses. Patton's drive looked good on newsreels. It killed very few Germans. But then came Messina. Patton launched an amphibious operation at Brolo, a risky night assault designed to cut off retreating German columns. It was bloody. It was unnecessary. The Germans were already leaving. Yet Berlin noticed something: speed. The American general moved faster than doctrine allowed, faster than logistics permitted, faster than his own superiors wanted. The notation went into the file. By the spring of 1944, the buildup for Normandy consumed Allied attention. Not in Berlin. At Oberkommando der Wehrmacht headquarters, intelligence officers compiled a briefing paper titled Invasion Générale. It profiled every senior Allied commander in Britain and the Mediterranean. Bradley appeared. Montgomery appeared. Patton didn't. The invasion came on June 6th. For 8 weeks, British, Canadian, and American forces ground against German defenses in Normandy. The hedgerows bled both sides white. Progress measured in yards. Casualties mounted into 5 figures. Then, on August 1st, something changed. Patton took command of Third Army. Within days, American forces punched through at Avranches. Not a careful advance. A torrent. The German 7th Army, commanded by General Paul Hauser, found itself facing encirclement. The corridor at Falaise narrowed to 12 miles. Panzer columns raced for the gap as Allied artillery pounded the roads. 100,000 Germans escaped, but the ones who didn't would remember Patton's name. The German High Command received the first detailed assessments in late August 1944. General Kurt von der Chevalerie, a veteran of the fighting around Kiev, submitted his report after conducting a fighting withdrawal across France. His forces had delayed Third Army for 3 weeks, despite constant retreat and near-total air superiority against them. The report noted Patton's speed. It also noted something else. Third Army attacked with overwhelming firepower. When Patton's divisions hit resistance, they stopped. Artillery arrived, tons of it, then tanks, then infantry. Not brilliant, der Chevalerie wrote, but effective. Other commanders agreed. General Hermann Balck, who had stopped Soviet breakthroughs on the Chir River in Russia, faced Third Army along the Moselle in September. He watched Patton's forces hurl themselves at Metz, the fortress city that anchored the German line in Lorraine. The attacks came in waves. 1 regiment, then another, then a third. Piecemeal, Balck called it in his after-action report. The kind of tactics that would have been suicide on the Eastern Front. But the Americans had something the Russians didn't: ammunition. For every ton the Germans fired, Third Army fired 10. For every replacement tank destroyed, 2 more appeared. The math was brutal and inescapable. By October, Patton's advance had stalled. Metz held. The Moselle line held. Autumn rains turned the battlefield into a swamp. Third Army's lightning war became a grinding, bloody siege that consumed 55,000 casualties in 3 months. The Germans watched with interest. Waffen-SS Gruppenführer Max Simon, commanding the 13th Corps, compiled his own assessment. American tactics, he wrote, were based on breaking down a wall by removing 1 brick at a time. Cautious, systematic, nothing to fear. But Berlin's intelligence staffs were tracking something their field commanders missed. Starting in early November 1944, a Third Army reconnaissance aircraft appeared over the Eifel region, far north of Patton's active front. The flights came daily. Deep penetrations, high-altitude photography. Then, on November 23rd, Third Army's intelligence section issued a report. It identified multiple panzer divisions moving west from Westphalia. Nearly all armor had vanished from Third Army's front. An estimated 500 tanks were assembling somewhere in reserve. The notation reached Berlin within hours. So what was he doing? At Third Army headquarters in Nancy, Colonel Oscar Koch stood before a map covered in red arrows. By December 9th, he had connected the pattern. 4 panzer divisions refitting near Paderborn in October. 5 more pulled from the line by mid-November. Massive rail movements. 226 trains on a single day in mid-November. The newly formed 6th Panzer Army, with 5 reconstituted divisions, and all of it concentrating north of Luxembourg. Koch briefed Patton that morning at 1100 hours. The enemy now held 13 divisions in reserve. 9 divisions sat opposite First Army's 8th Corps, 3 times the force facing all of Third Army. Patton studied the map for 30 seconds. "The Germans are going to launch an attack," he said, "probably at Luxembourg." He turned to his Chief of Staff, Brigadier General Hobart Gay, and his operations officer, Colonel Halley Maddox. "Start making plans," Patton said. "If they hit in the north, we turn 90 degrees. We attack from the south." 3 days later, on December 12th, Patton refined his guidance. He wanted 3 specific attack plans, 3 different axes, each with a code name. When the call came, he would simply announce the code, and the entire army would move. What happened next stunned them. At 0530 on December 16th, 3 German armies crashed into 8th Corps. General Hasso von Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army, ISS General Sepp Dietrich's 6th Panzer Army, General Erich Brandenberger's 7th Army. 28 divisions, 250,000 men. The American front shattered. The 106th Division, newly arrived and inexperienced, found 2 of its regiments surrounded within 24 hours. The 28th Division clung to small towns, Hosingen, Clairvaux, Manarc, but lost ground by the hour. Middleton's 8th Corps reeled backward, and in the center of the German thrust sat Bastogne, a crossroads town, 7 roads, nothing strategic about it except the roads. Whoever held Bastogne controlled movement. By the evening of December 16th, Bradley called Patton. "George, all hell has broken loose in the north." Patton listened to the situation. 2 German armies, maybe 3. Penetration depth unknown. 8th Corps collapsing. Bradley ordered the 10th Armored Division north immediately. Patton objected. Weakening his own offensive into the Saar made no sense, but he sent the division anyway. Then he hung up and turned to his staff. "The thing in the north is the real McCoy." Within an hour, planning staffs across Third Army were executing the contingency Patton had ordered 4 days earlier. On December 18th, Bradley called again. The situation was worse, much worse. German spearheads were 20 miles into Belgium. Entire regiments had been overrun. The road to the Meuse River lay open. Bradley wanted to meet Luxembourg City. That night, Patton arrived at 2200 hours with his intelligence, operations, and logistics officers. Bradley's intelligence officer briefed the German order of battle: 7 panzer divisions, 7 infantry divisions, all committed. Patton studied the map. "I can send 3 divisions north," he said. "The 4th Armored, the 80th Infantry, the 26th Infantry, all under 3rd Corps. I'll halt my offensive tonight and start them moving tomorrow morning." Bradley nodded. "We meet Eisenhower at Verdun tomorrow at 1100. Be ready to brief your plan." By midnight, one combat command of the 4th Armored Division was already moving north toward Longwy. The 3rd Army staff worked through the night. 63,000 tons of supplies had to be shifted. Hundreds of thousands of maps, 57 tons, had to be printed and distributed. 20,000 miles of communications wire had to be strung. An entirely new logistics network had to be created in 5 days. And all of it had to happen while an army of 250,000 men turned 90 degrees and drove north into winter. At 0700 on December 19th, Patton met with his key commanders. He laid out 3 possible axes of advance: Luxembourg to Diekirch to St. Vith, Ardennes to Bastogne, Neufchâteau to St. Hubert. Each had a code name. Then he left for Verdun. The meeting room was cold. A single pot-bellied stove provided little warmth. Eisenhower arrived looking grave. Bradley was there. So was Lieutenant General Jacob Devers, commanding 6th Army Group. British officers filled out the rest. Eisenhower opened with forced optimism. "The present situation is to be regarded as one of opportunity for us, and not of disaster," he said. "There will be only cheerful faces at this conference table." Patton grinned. "Hell, let's have the guts to let the sons of bitches go all the way to Paris. Then we'll really cut them off and chew them up." Nervous laughter. Eisenhower ignored the remark and turned to business. "George, I want you to command this move. Make a strong counterattack with at least 6 divisions. When can you start?" "As soon as you're through with me," Patton replied. "When can you attack?" "The morning of December 21st with 3 divisions." 48 hours. Eisenhower frowned. "Don't be fatuous, George. If you try to go that early, you won't have all 3 divisions ready, and you'll go piecemeal. You will start on the 22nd, and I want your initial blow to be a strong one." There was laughter in the room, especially from British officers. They assumed Patton was boasting. He wasn't. Patton pulled out his notes. Oh, he had 3 plans already prepared. 3 sets of movement orders. 3 axes of advance. All he needed was to telephone his chief of staff and speak a single code word. The room went silent. Someone shuffled papers. Chairs scraped. The skepticism was visible on several faces. But Eisenhower understood. This wasn't the man who had slapped 2 soldiers in Sicily and nearly ended his career. This wasn't the glory seeker who raced Montgomery to Messina. This was the commander who had studied intelligence reports while others ignored them, who had planned for contingencies while others planned victory parades. Eisenhower leaned forward. "All right, George. The 22nd. 3 divisions. Bastogne is your objective." Patton pointed to the map. "Brad, the Krauts stuck his head in a meat grinder." He turned his fist in a grinding motion. "And this time, I've got hold of the handle." Within an hour, every detail had been settled. Divisions, boundaries, objectives, Army group responsibilities, almost all on Patton's terms. The answer arrived by telephone. Patton called Gay from Verdun and spoke a single code word. Third Army pivoted. The 4th Armored Division raced north through Longwy toward Arlon. The 81st Infantry Division moved toward Luxembourg City through Thionville. The 26th Infantry Division prepared to follow. 3rd Corps, commanded by Major General John Milliken, would spearhead the drive to Bastogne. By December 20th, Patton had visited 12 different headquarters in a single day. He met with Bradley at Luxembourg. He conferred with Middleton at 8th Corps. He visited the 26th Infantry, the 81st Infantry, the 4th Armored, the 9th Armored, the 10th Armored. At each stop, the message was the same. Drive like hell. His driver, Master Sergeant John Mims, later remarked, "General, the government is wasting a lot of money hiring a whole general staff. You and me has run the Third Army all day and done a better job than they do." Patton wrote in his diary, "Destiny sent for me in a hurry when things got tight." The change was too rapid for the Germans to believe. On December 20th, prisoners from the 5th Parachute Division reported they were out of food and ammunition. Intercepted radio messages confirmed the same. The German offensive, designed to reach the Meuse in 48 hours, was already behind schedule. And now, Patton was coming from the south. On the morning of December 22nd, at 0600 hours, 3 divisions of 3rd Army attacked across a 20-mile front. Though the weather was brutal. Snow, ice, temperatures near zero. But 108 battalions of artillery, 1,296 guns, supported the advance. Patton wrote in his diary, "I don't see how the Boche can take this much artillery." The 4th Armored Division spearheaded the drive toward Bastogne. They made 10 miles the first day, 5 the second, 3 the third. The Germans resisted furiously. Roads turned into ice slicks. Tanks slid into ditches. Infantry froze in their foxholes. Medical officers treated more cases of trench foot than the combat wounds. But the Third Army kept moving. Inside Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division and elements of the 9th and 10th Armored Divisions held a shrinking perimeter. German artillery pounded the town daily. Supplies ran critically low. On December 22nd, the German commander sent a surrender demand. Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe sent back one word: "Nuts." When Patton heard the reply, he said, "Any man that eloquent deserves to be relieved. We shall go right away." The weather cleared on December 23rd. Allied air forces flew more than 200 supply missions into Bastogne. Fighters strafed German columns. Bombers hit ammunition dumps and supply depots. On the ground, the 4th Armored pushed north, mile by mile, town by town. On Christmas Eve, Patton ensured every soldier in 3rd Army received a hot turkey dinner. He spent the day driving from unit to unit, checking mess lines, asking troops if they got their meal. He also checked for trench foot. "Men we can get," he told his staff. "We can't get more soldiers." That same day, his Jeep was strafed by an American fighter plane near 4th Armored Division headquarters. Patton dove into a ditch. He was back on the road within minutes. By December 25th, Patton judged the Germans were beaten. Prisoners hadn't eaten in 3 to 5 days. Radio intercepts indicated fuel shortages across the German front. Panzer divisions that should have reached the Meuse were still fighting east of Bastogne. But there was something else. 3rd Army's 12th Corps, attacking the southern shoulder of the Bulge near Echternach, had employed a new weapon: the proximity fuse. Artillery shells that detonated 30 feet above the ground, spraying shrapnel across entire formations. Patton had witnessed a demonstration on December 16th and ordered the fuses kept secret until a critical moment. That moment came on Christmas Day, as German infantry attempted to cross the Sauer River near Echternach. Third Army artillery opened fire with the new shells. The airbursts caught the Germans in the open, on bridges, in boats, swimming the river. Casualties were catastrophic. Patton estimated 700 dead. The southern shoulder of the Bulge collapsed, and on December 26th, at 16:45 hours, a single Sherman tank from the 4th Armored Division's 37th Tank Battalion broke through to Bastogne. The siege was lifted. Word reached Patton within minutes. He wrote to his wife that night, "The relief of Bastogne is the most brilliant operation we have thus far performed, and is, in my opinion, the outstanding achievement of this war." News flashed around the world. Headlines screamed victory. Newsreels showed tanks rolling into Bastogne. Correspondents filed stories about the siege, the defense, the relief. Patton's name dominated every account. But the Germans had learned what they feared most. After the war, interrogators asked captured Wehrmacht officers the same question. Which Allied commander did you fear most? The answers varied: Montgomery, Bradley, Eisenhower. But the armor commanders, the panzer generals who had fought from North Africa to Normandy to the Bulge, gave the same response. Patton. General Gunther Blumentritt, who served as chief of staff to multiple field commands, said, "We regarded General Patton extremely highly as the most aggressive panzer general of the Allies. His operations impressed us enormously, probably because he came closest to our own concept of the classical military commander." Heinz Guderian, interrogated in 1945, stated, "I hear much about General Patton, and he conducted a good campaign. From the standpoint of a tank specialist, I must congratulate him on his victory, since he acted as I would have done had I been in his place." The files told the story. Starting in November 1944, German intelligence had tracked Patton's reconnaissance flights. They had noted his units pulling back from offensive operations. They had intercepted Third Army radio traffic about contingency planning. And on December 19th, when Patton promised Eisenhower he could attack in 48 hours, the German High Command received reports within 6 hours. They knew he was coming. They knew where, they knew when, but they couldn't stop him. So why did they fear Patton more than anyone else? The answer wasn't tactics. It wasn't strategy. It wasn't even the overwhelming firepower at his disposal. It was doctrine. German armor doctrine emphasized 3 principles: speed, shock, and exploitation. Attack the enemy where he's weak, bypass strong points, drive deep into the rear, collapse the front before the enemy can react. Patton had studied German doctrine obsessively. He read translated memoirs of Hans von Zicht, Chief of Staff of the German 11th Army in World War I. He absorbed Adolf von Schell's battle leadership. He analyzed the Blitzkrieg campaigns in Poland and France frame by frame, and he applied the lessons. "Never tell people how to do things," Patton wrote. "Tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity." Mission-type orders. The German concept of Auftragstaktik. Give the objective, let subordinates determine the method. It was German doctrine executed by American forces, and in the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans got a taste of their own medicine. Patton turned an entire army 90 degrees in 72 hours. He coordinated the movement of 63,000 tons of supplies across 250 miles of frozen roads. He positioned 1,296 artillery pieces to support an attack launched with less than 3 days' notice. And he did it while the German offensive was still pushing west. The panzer generals recognized the achievement immediately. This wasn't cautious. This wasn't systematic. This was their way of war. Aggressive, rapid, relentless. When the Third Army attacked on December 22nd, the Germans expected delays. They expected regrouping. They expected the Americans to build up overwhelming force before moving. Instead, Patton attacked immediately with whatever he had and reinforced success on the move. Within 4 days, he had 6 divisions committed. Within 6 days, Bastogne was relieved. Within 3 weeks, the Bulge was erased. It wasn't perfect. The 4th Armored took heavy casualties pushing to Bastogne. Entire battalions froze in their positions. Logistical breakdowns caused ammunition shortages at critical moments. But it worked, and the Germans understood why. Patton fought the way they fought: speed over caution, aggression over preparation, exploitation over consolidation. One captured German officer, interrogated in January 1945, summed it up in his report. "When Patton attacks, you know 3 things. It will be fast, it will be violent, and it will cost you." The Battle of the Bulge ended German offensive capability in the West. Hitler's gamble failed. The reserves committed to the Ardennes were destroyed. The road to the Rhine lay open, and Third Army led the way. Patton's soldiers paid the price. Third Army suffered 30,000 casualties in the 6 weeks of fighting from December 22nd to the end of January. Entire regiments were rebuilt twice. The weather alone killed hundreds through frostbite and exposure, but they broke the German army. When Eisenhower recommended Patton for his 4th star after the battle, he wrote, "Patton's greatest asset is his ability to move men and machines faster than any other commander and to sustain that movement under the most difficult conditions." That was the secret. Not brilliance, not genius. Relentless, methodical, violent speed. The kind of speed the Germans invented, the kind they feared. Because Patton had taken their doctrine and made it better. And in the frozen hell of the Ardennes, in December 1944, the Wehrmacht learned what it felt like to be on the receiving end. Third Army advanced 50 miles in 6 days. Relieved Bastogne in 72 hours. Destroyed 12 German divisions in 3 weeks, all starting from a 90-degree pivot executed in 48 hours. The Panzer generals knew exactly what that meant. Patton fought like they did, only faster.